All right, hopefully I said everything incriminating before the video started. Our daughter lives in Winston-Salem with her husband, Gabe, and he is in medical school. She is a middle school Spanish teacher, and she is about 16 weeks pregnant. So we're super excited at our house. John was in the Navy when we first got married, so we did a lot of moving. We ended up with him being with Northrop Grumman in Northern Virginia after he got his graduate degree after the Navy. We were in Northern Virginia for about 12 years, and that's where I went from what he called a professional volunteer. I started seminary and went on staff at our church up there, and then was on staff there for about 10 years, and then took a call in North Alabama, just outside of Huntsville, where I was for about almost 4 years before getting the call back here. So super excited about that. My husband, part of that ability to do that is John ended up taking an early retirement. So I could actually figure out where I wanted to work versus move where he was working and then find a job. So it was a blessing that this call came up right at the perfect timing in his job. So that was good. So that was the 2-minute, really fast version of Shannon. So does anybody have a question that they would like to ask me about who I am and what I do?
Several questions.
Right, yeah.
What was your favorite class? Like, if you could travel anywhere, where would you go?
Well, favorite class in seminary and why was my first class in seminary. And I think that was, I don't know who asked that, but Jane, Kathy Kapikian taught a class on God and creativity and art and kind of showing how God is creative. And we did a lot of Van Gogh and just how teaching is a creative piece of things. And Wesley was known for that. And so I took Van Gogh and God with Kathy Kapikian and figured out why my creativity worked well with teaching. Because to me it was two different, one was academic and theology seemed kind of disconnected from my creativity because that shouldn't be exciting. It was for me, but I figured, trying to make it creative for other people, that's where my favorite thing is. So that's that.
Shannon,
Yes.
during your first year in seminary, did you have any doubts that you might have made the wrong decision?
No, because at that point, I wasn't sure if I was just going to keep teaching Bible studies and just be at the church, or I was going to be ordained. It took me a little while before I really felt like God called me into ordained ministry versus teaching. So that was that, not yet. And then once I figured out God really wanted me in called ministry, part of it was so last week, let me back up a little. Last week, David said, he was a little kid. He knew he was called to ministry because he read his Bible every day growing up. Not so much with me. Grew up in a Christian household, loved my family, but and my parents were great, very spiritual people. But I really thought that if I were going to be a Christian, I had to do it exactly the way they did it. And Dad, for example, was always one that was on his knees beside the bed with the Bible open, and he had this incredible prayer list. And if you asked him to pray for him, he put it in his pocket, and it was he just was an intercessor. That is who he is today. He can't read the little tiny writing maybe on the little note cards anymore. It's a big sheet of paper, but I really thought I had to just, if I were a good Christian, I had to do it this way. It was great when I realized that I could go on walks in nature. I could play. I've got games in my office that I like to play, because often in games you realize the discipline you need or the strategy you need to grow. As a game player, you need that for discipleship. And just like you learn how to play golf or learn how to play tennis or learn how to play bridge or gin or whatever your game of choice is, there are rules and there are things that make you better. That's the same with discipleship. So for me, that was very helpful. And then I got into ministry because I was volunteering and they had an opening come on staff and they called me to do it. I was in seminary and had younger kids and I knew that was not my call. I knew for a fact that was not what I was supposed to be doing, is to go on staff. Because, you know, I was in school half time and I had kids and boundaries, right? We need boundaries. And I got a call at 8 o'clock on a Tuesday morning from the pastor of the church. And he was like, Shannon, Pete James here. And wants you to come in and talk to us about doing this position. And I knew my answer, let me be clear, I knew my answer was going to be no, but you can't just say no, right? You have to be at least spiritual in a church settings. So I said, I will pray about it. I will pray about it. And I hung up the phone at about 8:05, and I was like, well, I guess I better pray about it because you don't want to lie about praying. But let's be clear, I knew what my answer was going to be. So I prayed about it, and it wasn't an audible voice, but it was a very, very clear word from the Spirit. Shannon, you have been praying a year now about whether or not you want to be an ordained minister. You're called to be a minister or word of sacrament. You've been praying for a year for that clarity and discernment. Do not think working on a church staff and pastoral position is going to help you with that discernment. I mean, I'm giving you what you need to make your decision. So I called back and I said, okay, I'll do it. And so for about 15 months, I was half-time at work, half-time at seminary, half-time parenting. You did math. It was a crazy, crazy time. So that's kind of how I ended up. And then after working for about a year, I was like, yeah, the parts of ministry I really love. I do love the care and I do love the shepherding and I did love being in worship. So, I mean,
do you think your father's prayers led you also, because you pray beautiful prayers?
Oh, thank you.
Got that from him?
Probably. My family, yes. I know his prayers helped a lot of stuff. Okay, so I'll tell you all another story. He prayed a lot for me, and it's a good thing. I went to college, as you heard. I was definitely not in the, I was having a good time, we shall say. And my next door, I got home at Christmas of my sophomore year, and my parents saw my grades. And basically we're not paying Vanderbilt prices for these grades. You're gonna have to get your grades up or you're coming home. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna develop a plan for how I'm gonna get my grades up. So it's like, who do I know has good grades? And I thought about it a little bit, and I realized there were all these really, in my mind, geeky ROTC people that live next door, these guys, the next apartment over. And I thought, you know what? I bet I could get one of them to help me out, to develop a plan, to figure out how to get my grades up. So I went next door after Christmas, and very conveniently, these ROTC guys were also slightly competitive. They had all of their report cards on the bulletin board coming into their apartment. So I went and I looked at the board and I found the one with the highest GPA. And I informed him, I did not ask him, I informed him, hey, so you've got really good grades. Can I study? What do you do to study? He goes, well, I go to the library every night if I have class the next day. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going with you. And I'm sure he was like, okay, because again, I did not have the reputation of being the one that was going to the library every night. And I was like, so when do you go to the library? He goes, well, if I have class the next day. Well, Sunday nights make sense because everybody crammed on Sunday nights. But Monday night might have been a certain special deal at a certain restaurant with certain beverages on Monday nights that you get for $1. And, you really hate to miss a good deal. And he's like, no, I go to the library. I'm like, really? And do for Tuesdays. He's like, you know what, I go to the library that night too, and Wednesday and Thursday, it was really clear every night. He really meant every night. And so I was like, all right, I guess I'm gonna do it. So I know it is shocking to all of you, but when you choose to go to the library before you have class the next day, you make more classes the next day. So not only have you done your homework, but you go to school, you go to classes, and your grades come up dramatically. So it worked really well. And so, and I also worked at a sub sandwich beer joint. So I also had the option of going there, and I didn't have to pay for drinks there because I worked there. So on Thursday nights were really good. We'd go and get a beer after we studied in the library. So fast forward about 3 or 4 months, my significant other at that time broke up with me, horrors, and my study buddy swept in, asked me out on a date, and now we've been married about 32 years. So it worked out. It worked out. It also worked with my kids because I could tell them very clearly that their father's way of going through college works a lot better than their mother's way. And they thankfully followed their father's footsteps. So now you all know something that was not on my ministry information form. Yeah.
What was your favorite course at Vanderbilt?
Favorite course at Vanderbilt? I ended up being a European Studies major, and I loved that intersection of history and language and economics, and just kind of seeing how it all worked. I also loved the philosophy, but yeah. So and then there were about 3 times I probably would have changed majors, but my parents were like, "You need to just get 1 degree and stay there." But love the European studies. The only glitch was I'd had Latin in high school and a lot like 8 years of French and a couple years of Spanish. So the professor gave me a B on a paper because I would not read the book he wrote in Italian. And I was like, I haven't taken Italian. He goes, but you got these other languages. You can read it. I'm like, it's not gonna be. But I love the class. Others? Anybody else on here?
Travels.
The travels. Where would I go? I really want to go. We just did a couple weeks out west, starting in Glacier, ended up in Jackson Hole. Loved that. There's some parts up in Canada. I would like to go up there. Probably haven't done that. I've done a lot in Europe. And lived in, I would just at the London School of Economics for a session, so I felt like I've done a lot of that. I've been in Africa, I loved. I was there for a seminary for 3 weeks doing apartheid, studied in South Africa, and we'd love to go back there. That was amazing. I like to travel. So. Anywhere I can take good pictures. I love pictures. More? Yes, ma'am.
My stepfather, I'm just curious what the
He was in supply chain management and specifically subcontracts. So yeah, he worked for a lot of the different. He started out in the shipyard in Newport News and worked for a variety of places for about 25 years. Yes, ma'am. Actually, no. Well, I don't dislike it. I'm definitely a child of the 80s, and classic rock was I did that. But it was interesting because Nashville, Vanderbilt campus was right next to Music Row. And so if you played on Vanderbilt campus, you could get the kids at Vanderbilt to like you. Then if you played on the bars on Music Row, Vanderbilt kids would go there. And then the music industry people might discover you. So one of those places that I stopped going to as regularly when I started going to the library, you can see. So for example, I would say REM played on campus when I was on campus. One of the fraternities had one more gig with them before they hit it big. And so, yeah, they make great music on campus, but not all country. Yes,
Repeat the question.
I repeat the question. The question was, do I like country music?
So that's just, how did you get started in photography or develop an interest?
Okay, how did I get started or develop an interest in photography? I was always the one that did the family photos with my little point shoot. That was me. I had very elaborate ways to put it in Ziploc bags and like take it out in the water and take pictures of the kids surfing or whatever. I loved that and did pretty well. When I hit 49 and my kids were out of the house and we'd raised guide dogs for the blind for about 10 years, we weren't doing that anymore. I realized I needed like a hobby. So I started on a quest for several months to figure out what would be a good hobby. And asked my family, and there was somebody, they were like, and they're really good, they know me well, they said, you need a hobby that's creative, that's outside, and that you can use to help people, or be able to use in ministry. And they nailed it. And so then how do you find that hobby? And so my son actually had a DSLR camera that he wasn't using, and so I used that, and I was very disciplined. It was as I said, it was my 49th year, so every week I had to take 49 pictures without it being on manual. So by the end of that 40, by the time I hit 50, I could use the camera pretty well. I love doing that, and I love, some of y'all have seen it, but I have a blog that I hope to start doing more of, but where I take a photo and I integrate like what I learned from it, because I'm a very visual learner. So like I have a picture on my phone right now. I love the new phones that have great cameras of our broken toaster oven. We have a toaster oven that did not make it through the move because a bottle of white vinegar spilled, and white vinegar does really bad things to toaster ovens. So we didn't know that's what had happened. We just thought there was like this gunky stuff all over the outside of the toaster. So I think my husband spent cleaning up the outside of the toaster, and it's beautiful and chrome and shiny and gorgeous, and he plugged it in and it wouldn't work. So that'll be a blog about how we all want to look great on the outside, but the inside, if it's not working, it's probably not super effective. So that's.
Question from the Hermans, why are you a Presbyterian? How did you become a Presbyterian? Why? What do you believe about being a Presbyterian?
Great question. So what do I believe about being a Presbyterian? Why am I a Presbyterian? Why did I choose Presbyterian? And some of you all know this, some of you don't. I definitely have been in a variety of, growing up, my parents they moved a lot, so they went to a church that had a children's program and a preacher, and they were very invested, but then we were in a variety. So growing up, the guy that I married, John, he is a diehard Presbyterian, definite Scots in his family, English, whatever. And he was Presbyterian. His sister is a Presbyterian pastor. So he started going to Presbyterian churches because, and I loved the academic piece of the sermons. I liked that they were well researched. I liked how, I remember clearly, I grew up in several times we were in churches that women could not be in ministry. So I got to know John's sister Connie, who was a pastor, and I knew she loved Jesus, and I knew she loved scripture, and I knew she was really smart. So I remember asking her, so tell me how can you do this? It's really fascinating. How can you do it? And she showed me scriptures that women were actually in ministry, actually leading worship, were leaders of the church. And I was like, and it was fascinating because not one of those scriptures were brought up in the churches I grew up in. They just skipped them. So anyway, that was, and I love the fact that we're not on our own, that we're part of a Presbyterian, we have support, we're very connectional, relational. I like that the Presbyterian church is also about polity, which enables people with different opinions to work together. So it doesn't have to be unanimous, that there's a place for dissenting views and opinions, so all voices can be heard. I love that the ones that I've been a part of, people from other denominations can come in to be Presbyterian, and not be shamed or pushed out if they don't, you have the ability to come into a Presbyterian church and learn and grow, and you don't have to meet certain standards to get in. Others, anything else?
What excites you, or do you find and find challenging about working with families? Whatever your call is, families with young children.
I saw so why I feel called into family ministry. That's a couple of different things. One, I see that families, parents, they have a lot more time with their kids at home than we have with the church. So I really love not only making sure we have great programming at the church, but also how can we equip parents to do what parents do out in the community. So, when they're at home, I do a whole thing that I put out in my email about conversation starters for driving around. I mean, if you've got kids at home, you do a lot of driving usually at your kids' places. So what conversations can you have in the car? Make use of that. How can I help parents share their faith better with kids and equip families for really rough circumstances and transitions? And I know that I believe so the fruits of the Spirit make parenting a lot easier. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, generosity, self-control. All those things help you as parents, but those are fruits of the Spirit. So parents kind of need to take care of their own spiritual lives to be able to have that in their family life. So I like helping do that. I don't know if you all know, we raised guide dogs for the blind for about 10 years. My son, when he was in kindergarten, came and asked, we had a book, he brought a book home from school to read together about puppies, and it was about puppy raising for guide dogs. And Steve and I read the book like 20 times that week, as you do. But we both ended the week saying, this is something we want to do. As a family, we had our second child that you'll meet. It was delightful. It was one of those danger children. It was kids that can get into anything and get out of anything. And pulled her off the bottom of pools, like seriously, half a dozen times. She would just, she would climb. We would childproof her into her bedroom. She was not sitting down. We put her into her bedroom. Did the childproof lock so she could get on the inside so she couldn't get out. And I went and took a shower because she couldn't let her be herself. Our son was at kindergarten. Anna got out of her room. She got out of her crib, out of her childproof room, out the dead-bolted back door, climbed on top of the monkey bars on our swing set. I get out of the shower, bathrobe on, look out the back window, and there's my not yet 2-year-old toddler up this top. So anyway, when Steve and I wanted to raise guide dogs, my husband said, you need to get Anna alive to preschool first. And we did. And so we got to raise guide dogs. So that was a family ministry. My kids will say that they shoveled poop for Jesus. And they did. You've got multiple labs, they do. So a lot of talking about our pets and our dogs and years of raising guide dogs.
I know there's a ratio of dogs that are helpers for people. Some of them don't make it because of their capacity. So how many of the guide dogs that you raised actually became guide dogs, or is it the same scenario where they lose focus and don't really make it?
Great question. So you asked on the guide dogs, what percentage of them make it? Because actually a very small percentage of guide dogs make it all the way through the program. So we were volunteers. It was a family volunteer ministry opportunity for us to do. I was doing a lot of volunteering, but wanted the kids to help. So The first one we did, they gave her to us at Lila at 8 weeks and said she's really sensitive, so you need to take her to a lot of places. So every day you try to take her to a new place. She got all the way through her training, was about to get her blind person, and they blindfold the instructor and tell her to walk out in front of traffic or off the subway platform or into a dangerous situation. A dog has to be able to confidently redirect the blind person. And Lila she didn't like saying no. So she came back to us. You're a volunteer, do it, but you do get first dibs on the dogs that don't make it. So Lila came back to live with us and helped raise the others. And she was great at helping raise others, because then we got the next one. Portia became a guide. The third one we did really well. She actually went into the breeding program and had puppies. And the fourth one we did, was a guide for a while, but it's not, they had this whole really elaborate breeding program, database, research, and the ones with the sire, the dad of the fourth one we did, Ritter, they didn't, at about 2.5 years, they would just fall apart as guide dogs. So he is working with an autistic child now, who's from a blind person, kind of service dog position. So I think they say maybe 20% actually make it. So we did pretty well. And then we had dozens that came in, either were puppy sitting or they would, because we've done it so long that, they'd have dogs with bad habits, they'd be broken, or that were afraid of, stairs. Can you work with this? So there were a lot of dogs that we worked with. Get them under little house. It was a lot of fun. We were tired. By the time you get to the end of about 1.5 years with them, 1 3/4 years with them, for those of you, I know we've got confirmation parents. There's a point when your kids are in high school, they get to like their junior, senior year, and they're delightful. You love your kids, you love them, but it's going to be a good thing when they go to college. And that's about that. The dogs get about 22 months. You're like, we love you, but it is time for you to go learn more. Because they'll try and find things in your house to learn, like opening doors, getting into cabinets, counter surf. They start. We had dogs that learned how to work the ice machine.
Shannon, I have like a two-pronged question.
Sure.
First of all, what is the most rewarding thing for you as pastor? And what's your biggest challenge?
Most rewarding thing as a pastor and most challenging thing as a pastor. Most rewarding is when I'm working with another person and they have an aha moment. And so it can be in any variety of different ways. It's not that, but they have that click of, and they're just another step down the journey, or they have another level that they're kind of going on. So that's exciting, because I love helping people figure out what is the best next step for them, because everybody's is different. And anytime you try and make it formulaic, it doesn't work. So when you have a conversation, you kind of coach somebody and they're really feeling called to do something in ministry or in prayer or in study. So we'll kind of listen to them and help them figure out that next thing. So that's I love the most. The most challenging is it's got I'm going to say something around relational. Just when I think it's Henry Nouwen that says hurting people hurt people. So the church has a lot of hurting people. You see, sometimes you have breaks in relationships. That for me is the hardest thing with people. And being in a place of grace and mercy and helping them feel loved in the midst of some of their. Because as much as we'd like to think that everybody in the church acts like Jesus, doesn't really work that way. More. So, yeah, sure.
What's the difference between the Presbyterian and the Church of Alabama?
The difference between First Presbyterian and Westminster in Alabama. The main thing is size. If this is just much larger, that one had a membership of about 110 people. And I had come from a church of, at that point, about 2,500 people in Vienna to Westminster. And I loved it. And I loved the opportunities it gave me to do pretty much everything. And it was great. I know I was called to be there during the pandemic because I'm fairly technologically, I can figure things out. So I was able to not only help our church get online, but other churches in the Presbytery. So that was good. Get some work done on the building. So that, but I like being part of a bigger staff. So, I mean, the staff there was me, and then had a director of music, worship, Jeremy, kind of person part-time, and then another person. The rest of it was me. So, a lot of volunteers, but it's a lot of, I like having a bigger team.
Shannon, this is Mary Rain here. All through my church adult life, and especially my first husband was a minister, we were very concerned about so many churches spending so much time on outward mission, to the detriment of the fact that congregations were not being cared for themselves within the walls. And this is one thing I'm hoping. Sometimes I feel like we need a special person in that role only. And we've had that through part-timers many times. Is that a role that you feel strong in, caring for mission within the church, the caring for people within the church? You've touched on that a little bit as a challenge.
Absolutely. It is something I feel very, very strongly about. I kind of got my first leadership role as a Stephen leader way back 25 years ago. I've been very active in Stephen ministries in multiple churches. I did the care ministries at Vienna for the 25 minute. So, and I'm very much there's only so much individual pastors can do in congregational care. You're spread thin and you've got everything to go, and we can do crisis ministry, but that ongoing care of hearing people, 2-3 weeks after the funeral, or 6 months after the divorce, that kind of thing, that's a little bit hard. So making sure we've got teams developed that are trained, whether it's student ministry or we have the Barnabas teams, but some way that we're training our deacons, training our lay leaders to continue to help support people more comprehensively, because with as many people as we have here, and in my mind, the needs that are needed here, the pastors can handle crisis and hospitals largely for this size church, but ongoing, I'm very interested in developing teams of people, whether it's, in conversation with some people are trying to figure out, for example, apparently people moved into the church that were Stephen ministers. If we revitalize the Stephen ministry program, who would be on board for that? But I think care is really important. That is one of my.
Well, our church has been very strong in that in the past, Stephen ministry as well as diaconate, and I hope it doesn't fall.
No, that's part of my job. That's why.
Yeah.
That's one reason you have me, because I.
Good.
Yeah, I'm working on it. I've had multiple meetings. We're trying to.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any question on the screen?
Oh, so Bill Lowry gave us a really easy one on change. How do we help people change and systems change? And in a nutshell, for both, it really answers both. This is actually a topic that fascinates me. I think you have to paint a picture of how it can be. So going back to the congregational care thing, paint a picture of, we want at First Presbyterian to be a church that cares for its members, whether it's a crisis or it's an ongoing chronic ministry. We want to develop people in their discipleship that will care for their neighbors in the pew, their neighbors in their neighborhoods, and be the love of God out in the world. And how can we, and then you get people excited about that, and then they want to get there, and then you just offer them practical ways to get there. That, my experience, is a lot better to kind of paint the picture and help everybody want to go in the same direction. Of course, better than saying, you know, you should be doing this, you should be, so you've got to make them buy into the vision of how it can be. And in faith formation, that's going back to talking about, you know, fruits of the Spirit. I mean, who wouldn't want to parent with the fruits of the Spirit? So people are like, okay, I want to parent that way. So what do I need to do in my life that I can be that kind of a parent? And that's kind of my philosophy on change. It's, you don't just, and trying to, like, when we advertise things here in the world, and you're starting to make the change of, it's not just, you know, who is coming to speak on racial justice, but why do people want to come to that? Because there's some people who are like, oh, it's racial justice, I'm going to go. But the people that are maybe not sure if they want to go, why, what about that, what kind of change would it make in their life for the better for that to happen? You know, Martin Luther King's famous I Have a Dream speech is a perfect example of this is what I'm dreaming, let's get there. I wish it was as easy as I just said, to be clear. But it's ongoing.
You mentioned fruit of the Spirit a couple of times. What's bringing you joy and happiness?
So many things. The first thing that came to mind, I'll start with the first thing that popped in my brain. I'm sure I love being part of a team here. That it's so much fun to, you know, even as we've got the tragic loss for Patrick and his family, but just there's a team of people that have come together and we're figuring out, okay, we're covering worship, we're covering, you know, stuff in the office, we're doing, you know, just that it's a team of people, it's not just what Shannon showed. So that's, I love Asheville, super excited to be in Asheville, always loved Asheville, so that's fun being your family. We were able to sneak down to see John's sister yesterday in Charlotte, and just the idea that I can go do a quick run to Charlotte or see her daughter and then do a quick run is pretty awesome. So I realized questions for you all. I know that they did a lot. We got some really good ideas on hiking and restaurants last week. What are things that you all think I should know about Asheville that I might not know about? Or David might not know about. I'm going to tell him too. What's your insider's guide to Asheville, North Carolina?
There's free parking at the First Presbyterian Church.
You got a sticker, yeah. You've got a sticker, you've got free parking. Yep, that's great.
But beware, I got a parking ticket yesterday for park downstairs, and I have a sticker on my car. So I handed it to Riley, he's gonna take care of it.
Yep,
But,
yep,
you know, I mean, get to know Riley.
yes. Oh, I figured that out fast. Yeah, Riley is important. Riley is important. That's good.
Yeah, I was not pleased.
Yeah.
I think I just bought
Yeah, absolutely. Just how beautiful it is. And this is one of my favorite places in the world. Not favorite, these mountains. So that's super exciting about that. I think most of my parents live at Lake Lure, and what was my grandparents' house. So I literally been going up there for a long time. Life. They got up. I think my mother was 11. So, what other insight? Yes, ma'am.
I think not being from North Carolina, one of the big things that surprised me is how seriously people take their barbecue here. Discovering the different types, be ready, you know? It's not the same. Every place does it a little different.
the different types of barbecue. She's, and yes, that said, I just moved up from Alabama.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a thing. I had the privilege of working about half a mile from Big Bob Gibson's barbecue, and their lobby area was full of trophies about this big for having the best barbecue at the big Memphis barbecue, whatever. Every year they win the big, like literally this it's as big as, it's almost as big as Spaniard, like literally here. It's all around y'all need to come up with another plan because it's not for people in there. But yeah, barbecue. And I do like my vinegar barbecue. I hope I don't get in trouble for saying that here. But I'm a much more of a vinegar barbecue person.
Yay.
I have a suggestion about Asheville. Don't trust the weather forecast.
What is it with the weather
It's the
here?
mountains, it's the mountains.
She said, don't trust the weather here. And I
Weather forecast.
could not believe, I remember we were on the Epiphany service, they were calling for snow and ice right as people would have been in the service and were trying to figure out what to do. And the month I was up here before starting, I think they got it right about 30% of the time. I have never, they're not even words for how bad.
They're not close.
Yeah, they went out, I'm not a golfer, but my family are golfers, so they went out to play golf on a day, it was supposed to be 72 and sunny. And my mother quit after 3 holes and went and sat in the clubhouse because it was like 65 and raining. There's a big difference. I mean, that's not even close.
Yeah.
We were supposed to have snow last night too, sometime during the night.
We did.
Yeah.
It was,
We did in Weaverville.
Yeah, you can always put on North Ash.
Yeah.
yeah, it was, little bits coming down, flurries when I was coming in early this morning.
So the rooftops and the back deck and the shrubbery was all white.
Yeah.
A
So
reminder,
snow in Weaverville.
had a reminder to keep repeating people's questions.
Yeah, so it talks about snow, what about the weather not being great, and people were talking about there was snow last night in Weaverville, but not south of Asheville, so,
With your artistic bent, you must be thrilled to be in Asheville.
yes, very much, so very excited to be near the artistic pieces of Asheville. Yeah, so that's, and just to explore more of those, so that's a good place, so where do I need to go? Where's some great, like, cool furniture makers, or glass, or pottery? Do y'all have?
Seventh Day Woods is a great furniture maker.
Sabbath Day Woods, awesome, okay.
Google him.
East Fork Pottery,
East Fork Pottery.
he does, and it's the like nephew of, I can't even remember who it is now. You can actually walk into the kiln. It's that big. And he does like an open show a couple of times a year, but you can go up there anytime. For the life of me, is it Manasseh? It's the nephew of the famous artist. That's who owns that pottery.
Where
And it's out in the middle of nowhere, going north, like you're going past Weaverville. So take Dramamine if you don't like them.
So as long as I'm driving, it's great.
Yeah, but it's really,
Would that
it's
be-
really-
Would that be Matt Jones, who's out in Sandy Mush?
I don't remember who it is.
No, but he's
Well-
good.
Yeah,
East Fork has a store right down the street.
So they're saying East Fork Pottery has a shop downtown somewhere nearby. So,
but it's just really cool to go to that kiln.
yeah,
It's like a wooden structure frame around it, and then you can walk into it.
Very
So, yeah.
So kiln big enough to walk into, I haven't seen one that big. Yes, babe.
Yeah, another place downtown is the old Woolworth store.
The old Woolworth store?
You been there? So it's set up as different galleries, so there's all kinds of different artists.
Is that the Crest, the one that says Crest Galleries, or is it additional?
Is that Haywood Road?
Still down there.
Yeah, it's, if I know my direction.
So the old Woolworth, somebody said there, it's this other one, so the old Woolworth, I can find that.
The
That
old
sounds like a,
We can't hear real well what's going on in the classroom, but has anyone mentioned the Glass Works place on Cox Avenue where you can watch them make glass and they have beautiful, beautiful glass works?
Okay, no, they haven't, just the two pottery that I'd said, so yeah, so that sounds amazing, I love that.
And you can't go wrong with the River Arts District either.
That's
Just
right.
kind of popping in
Yeah.
to see some of the artists as they're actually working in a lot of the little shops. River Arts.
Yeah, River Arts District, sounds like I need to go there too.
Folk Art Center. Go to the
Folk Arts.
Folk Art Center.
So I have my daughter and son-in-law coming. Where should I take them on Saturday? Where should we go on Saturday?
Folk Art Center. They have demonstrations and they have something for all age groups.
And Shannon, if you have not, and I'm a huge proponent of this, I've been an annual pass holder at Biltmore. It pays for itself in like 3 or 4 visits.
Yep.
And some of the scenery there, when you walk along the river, there's clear, very nice pathways to run and walk, and all year long. Macy and I go there to the gardens, the conservatory. Your pictures that you could get there would be breathtaking year round.
So they'll
you
get
have
an annual
another-
pass. They'll get
Yeah.
an annual pass. You're not the first person that has told me. I need to
It is.
go for an annual
I
pass.
echo that, I go every day, every morning, I go in. It's a safe place to
Yes.
walk for a single person. on
It's a
your
safe
own.
place to walk for a
And you've
single
got
person.
lots of options, you could take flat around the lagoon, or you could head up the hill and do some sweating exercise. But it's a great place to be, and once you bought a pass home, it pays for itself, really, if you use it the way I use it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like it. If you're walking there most days, that's
Every day.
And another one is the North Carolina Arboretum, which is not as expensive as, but you can put a whole carload of people in and go, and the pictures that you can get there year round are also breathtaking. And hikes, all throughout that go forever, as Macy and I found out one day. Even through gates that say do not cross.
Do not cross.
awesome. Very good. Yes.
I would add to the Arboretum, you get into Bed Creek, which has more trails, and you can walk on roads that will lead you up to scenes or single track, and you're not gonna get lost. So, I mean, you can. You You can get lost, but there are people. It's not like you're like, oh my gosh, it's going around and where am I? There are maps and very simple, if your family is interested in just seeing what it's like, it's a good place to go.
Fantastic.
Bed Creek. Okay, Bed Creek. Sounds great. Yeah, it's gonna be, it'll be fun. Yeah, it'll be great to have them here. I know that a lot of people are like, oh, wineries and breweries, but I'm like, she's pregnant. It'd just be me. Just me. We're really excited to get to know all of you better and well, and do ministry together. And yeah, if you want to connect more one-on-one, or if you have a great idea, or if you or somebody you know is a student minister or student leader, let me know, because we're trying to build that list up to see if we've got enough traction of people who are interested in helping kind of revitalize that ministry. Yeah. Yeah. Anything else? Thank you.
As a former church librarian, I hope you will support Elizabeth as much as I was supported when I was a librarian.
Absolutely, absolutely. I was just talking to Creation Care about how they have books for Elizabeth to have there. And they're like, well, we had thought we could do that. All right, so I probably should go get ready for worship with some of you all. But thank you. This has been very fun. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.